Hello, you've reached the show again. We're not doing the weird, paranormal, supernatural, cyberpunk hunting stuff. We are doing Dale Pendell, Pharmakodynamis, about stimulating plants, potions, and Herbcraft, Exictanica and Empathogenica or something, and Pathogenica. And we're going to do the tea chapter. Why is I thinking of doing it? Well, it is extremely long. It is very interesting because it goes into ancient Chinese history a little bit, and it is very, very well done. Except sometimes when I look at it after, because this book came out in '94. Similar to the LSD chapter, there's just certain things, it's always going to be certain arguments or whatever, certain ideas. Sometimes you look back and you're going to be like, oh, but this one is specifically a little bit bad because it's like some Chinese, interpreting Chinese stuff that I don't even know, but that's my fair warning. Now, a few years ago was getting into Taoism quite a bit about the idea of the mushroom of immortality. It's a thing that's an element of it. They wrote books about it and stuff like that, and it's a part of the temple types. What is it called? Worshipping or something like that. Many hundreds of years ago or whatever, but. They say nowadays, now this is just a little interjection, maybe you'll find it interesting, but I'm going to be talking about tea. But my idea is what it is, since they use the yin-yang, they say it's a reishi mushroom because it looks like this little woody thing. I'm like, bullshit. What it is, and I'm going to be quartered by horses by bringing up so much blasphemy, but I say it is a combination of Amanita muscaria mushrooms or some sort of thing like that, amanitas, because there is a brown one too. Amanita mushrooms, which is like the weird delirium, sleepy time, and also magic mushrooms, or traditionally the psilocybin mushrooms. The combination of them, because the combination of them is very weird and it's different than either of the two in isolate, and it is I'm going to go into this tea chapter, but regardless, I recently discovered that this combination is similar to ketamine, where it's all of a sudden, it's time slows down. You can you grasp all these weird ideas you hadn't before, and all of a sudden, time is sped up, and you're like, what the fuck? It's very weird, but it's more natural feeling than ketamine, because ketamine feels disgustingly plastic and gross, and I'm sure they use the different where ketamine is the medicine for antidepressant or whatever, that maybe is a little bit more tame, but yeah, I always found ketamine to be completely disgusting, and how would they even give this to anybody? It's how do even people like it? But once you go into the K-hole dimension, and it's becomes just completely mind-boggling. That's I guess how people like it. But if you try and party on it, a small man, it's it's and then I was saying that I just recently discovered that maybe this combination is a similar sort of thing that is safer and more natural. But anyways, we're going to get to the tea chapter. So yeah, I don't know how much Taoism, but I brought it up to Eric Davis, and I didn't discover the combination idea until just recently, but a few years ago. I asked him about it, and he said Joseph Needham. Where's my phone? Joseph Needham was one of the first Englishmen who went into the interior of China in the year 1800, I believe, to just do missionary work, I think. And at that point, it's I sometimes bring this up to people, and I don't know if I feel like I'm being dismissive or racist or whatever, but they supposedly they say that England was 200 years ahead in the sciences and then China in the year 1800, where they had more, I don't know, like metalworking or, you know, ships, steam ships, that kind of stuff, where China didn't have it. But yeah, so he discovered, well, there is some science like Chinese alchemy, that kind of stuff, similar to like India, some kind of like internal alchemy systems, and I think that's how it relates to Taoism. But yeah, let's get into the fucking book. Sorry, guys. So this is the first of these books that I got after I went to that conference, and I just freaking loved it. I was like, what? It's so like, they call him like a Renaissance man. So see, where he brings up so many different like poetic kinds of like things, either in that history or kind of like just like the character of that plant, because part of it, I think, is the idea about the poison path in general is like, let's see this thing. We've got the different drugs in a kind of a weird system based on the way it affects the mind. Well, the whole shebang is a little bit more than that, and you know, what was I trying to say? That it's kind of like in tea, I think, is maybe a good example or a bad example of it, but the idea about like people just go insane, cultures change and societies change sometimes so much over it, where it's like, it's just fucking nonsense, in my opinion, sometimes, or like, you know, it's too overboard. Just like he brings up the idea about how in modern business, it's like you have to have a coffee break or something, and that's like thanks to coffee. But anyways, let's get on to the show. It's very long. It's almost in two parts, because it's one about green tea, which is China, and then black tea, which is England. And I hate the fucking black tea chapters, but it is still kind of good. But it's like, the thing is, I hate black tea. It's disgusting, and it's like similar. I hate the chapter too. Let's get onto it. Okay. Camellia Sinensis, which is like cannabis sinensis, I forget, or something like that. But the idea about Camellia is maybe named after the Queen of England in a racist sort of way, when it's like discovered for England. But this is the scientific name. I don't know. Let's get on to the show. Okay. Camellia Sinensis. The flowers. You don't often see any flowers. It's weird how it's included in this. Okay. It says common names is tea, cha, or chai. Now, I don't know if I'm allowed to read from this book, because it's like, you know, theft of it, but I've seen other books where people do it. And I think even in the beginning, it's like, it's a Creative Commons book, but you can't be just reading from it without doing any kind of like critical thing. Let's see. Ignobi portion of the book, except for a brief review, may be reproduced, stored, blah, blah, blah. So, I don't know, without written permission to publisher, but then it'll go a little bit further. Let's see. Random House Books. Author gets more volume, credit section. Maybe not. It's the other book, but whatever. Screw it. Dale died. And yeah, so I don't know who to ask. It says the parts used are the leaves, cured and packaged in several ways depending on the type of tea to be produced. There's three main types: green tea, oolong, and black tea. And it goes into a little bit more. This is why I find tea a little fascinating. There's like, I forgot what it's called, I can't remember right now. But where it smells like rotten fish, and it's like a cake, and then there's all other kinds too. Like, and I think even they include just things that are like it in China too sometimes. I forgot what we had, but it was like, oh man, I'll find it later. Maybe include it. Okay. It says green tea is unfermented. As soon as the leaves are picked, and they're steamed, the Japanese way, and fired, or fired the Chinese way, which is quickly cooked by hot air. Pardon me, I'm not ready to breathe from this, but let's do it. Okay. So, yeah, I guess the steaming makes it ferment, and I don't know, I've never tasted any difference, but I think that has to do with, like, if you ever had, like, fine, like, tea from Starbucks or something like that, it has, like, a really, really, like, complex, like, woody taste, and then there's other kinds of tea where it's just this, like, ugh, and then black is even worse, ugh. But yeah, and then I've even gone further where I've boiled black so much it loses its taste completely, and it tastes like sweetness. It doesn't even make any sense. And this is part of, I think, what it relates back to alchemy and all these weird, like, experiments from thousands of years ago, whatever. So the steaming or firing arrests any ongoing enzymatic activity in the leaves. A quick kill, you may say. After that, the leaves are rolled, and it breaks up the internal cell walls. And after rolling, their leaves are dried. The black teas are fermented, and oolong is partially fermented. After picking, the leaves are allowed to wither, to partially dry on racks, either in the sun or in the shade, depending on style. Now, what is interesting with COVID is you'll never believe me, and I told people about it, and they're like, no. But after COVID happened, maybe like a year into it, oh my God, at the grocery store, all the teas tasted disgusting. It tasted, they used to be all these, and there was like other kinds too. What do they call it? This one from Africa. Shoot, I'm not, but regardless, I got a few different ones, and they all tasted like mildewy, like a gross towel or rag, you know what I'm saying, where they had gone bad. And I was like, oh my gosh, what happened? And I don't know, but I'm sure it was like they thought the world was ending, to like screw it, for, you know, or vice versa. They're like, let's keep all the tea for, I don't know. Okay, so unless these leaves are partially dried, they can't be rolled, and the enzymatic degradation occurs during the withering of it. So thus the best teas are withered in a dry weather, when the process only takes a couple of hours, and rain tea takes a longer, and it's less preferred. I don't know, when Pastor went to China, he was talking about it was hot and dry. So after rolling, these leaves are spread out and cooled in a humid place to ferment or to further oxidize. I think that's like not only drying, but you know what I'm saying, like kind of dry, but kind of wet still. And if they're kind of like roasted, it's kind of, that gives it its character. And so the effects of the two stages of oxidation are evidently different. Perhaps because rolling it, more of the constitutes of the leaves, especially the essential oils and so forth, they're exposed and precipitate in the various oxidizing actions. This is why leaves for black and oolong teas, they must not be quote-unquote killed. They are rolled, before they're rolled, as green tea is. So this is a little bit boring, but I'm trying to get to the history part. This is why these books are like climbing giant mountains sometimes. It's very frustrating, very difficult, but worth it, I guess. So the oxidation makes the leaves turn coppery brown, and oolong are only allowed to partially oxidize, about 20 to 60% depending on the particular type of oolong to be produced. In black tea, the process is allowed to run to completion. After these leaves had fermented precisely to the degree desired, they are fired. Somewhat longer for green tea. And the final, I guess, is when they get dry, because you never buy like whatever tea and then it's kind of like goopy and wet or whatever, at least here. But I imagine I've seen like really expensive fine teas where it's kind of like still, it's really, really fine. They called it like bird's beak or something, bird's tongue. Really finely cut, but still like kind of soft, but not, you know what I'm saying? Not wet, but not like crisped or whatever. And then just to be a secondary thought, sometimes like with kratom, or I forget what else has this thing where they'll be like, the fermented version is so much better. The fermented version is so much better. And I'm like, I don't get it. How, I've never noticed like any significant difference, but yeah, I don't know. Or no, I think amanitas too. I can't remember exactly what the other ones are, but I've heard it in multiple different things. So in the final step, these leaves are sorted and graded by size. There are many local variations and refinements of the processing stages, especially in China. Some teas go through several sortings, and so that small flakes can be processed separately from whole leaves. The world's great distinctive teas are the result of not only regional differences in the strain and the growing conditions of the trees, but also the particular methods of picking and curing. And I know he took into some weird things where it's like the ladies are the best ones for picking it. And I think similar, a book about coffee, same thing. It's like there's some people have like the best skills or something. It's like, or in the case of commercial teas, they don't have that quality. But these are the signatures. This I don't think is some other things, but the signatures. Tuting, paper packed, bright virtue. He's like saying the brands of it. Tungting, paper packed, bright virtue, sour box, and coniferous evergreen, and Harper tea. Some of the Taiwan teas from Blofeld, Chinese art of tea. Now, just fair warning, this is going to be really long and boring. Just kind of like how drinking tea is. You got to realize that he tries to make it kind of like the style. Well, he does it under the influence too, I think, but he does it kind of trying to make the style of it. Like, I don't know, it's hard to explain. Okay, the taxonomy. Tea is native to Southeast Asia. Most of the history of tea in the West can be found in the story of its taxonomy. In Linnaeus, or Linnaeus, maybe? Linnaeus thought that black tea and green tea were different. I guess it's Linnaeus. Make a note of that. We're talking about, what's his name? Dang it, the guy who went to the interior of China, and then also think about look into Linnaeus. Linnaeus. I thought it was Linnaeus, like the idea about ancient people, maybe. You know what I'm saying? Through the Linnaeus of history, but that kind of doesn't make any sense, does it? Carl Linnaeus, a Swedish biologist who was born in 1700 or 1707. A botanist and a physician is the father of modern taxonomy. He's famous for his work in taxonomy and the science of identifying and naming classifying organisms. That's kind of funny though, because it's the prepared version. You thought they were, oh yeah, that's, versus coming upon it in the wild, whatever. So he thought these were different plants, and this was a very excusable mistake because Europeans knew about tea for 2 centuries. They had also had to learn from the dried cured leaves they had traded from the Chinese. And the Chinese had a monopoly, and they guarded it carefully. And it wasn't until 1842, by which time tea was the largest single item in English import. A rather remarkable English ethnobotanist named Robert Fortune traveled in disguise to the interior of China to see live tea plants, collect them, voucher specimens, and correct Linnaeus' mistake. And black tea and green tea come from the same plant. This is funny to think about. We discussed it too, like about the sugar trade and, or what's it called? Like silver and spices. How I forgot that tea at one time was like incredibly, insanely valuable to the, at least in regards to trade. So here's transporting bales of tea. me say the date. I swear there's other versions of these books I've seen where it has the like more information about who made the picture. And so earlier in 1823, another adventuresome ethnobotanist, Robert Bruce, living with the indigenous peoples in Assam, had discovered that they drank a tea from a native plant. And after initial misidentification as another species of Camellia, an herbalist in the Linnaean Society correctly identified it as to be tea. Bruce mapped 120 strands of the wild Indian tea plant while exploring Assam and the borders of Burma and China. The Chinese tea plant, Camellia sinensis varius sinensis, is this bushy version. The Indian tea plant is Camellia sinensis varia asimica. It's a tall and rangy tree. Bruce thought that the Assam tea could be cultivated, but his employers, the British East India Company, they disagreed, and so tea tasters judged it as harsh and burned instead, in 1851, they sent Robert Fortune back to China, and this time he returned with 12,000 tea plants. Reasoning that Chinese tea would grow at the same places where wild Assam trees grew, they uprooted the groves that Bruce had discovered and planted Robert Fortune's Chinese trees, none of which would ever produce worthy tea. The company had already fired Robert Bruce for his draft preoccupation with wild tea. In 1853, however, his successor George Williamson decided that Bruce had been right all along and began planting these native broadleaf variety Asimica. The company learned about the fine points of tea cultivation by translating a book that was more than 1,000 years old. It's the Lu Yuz, or let's see, Lu Yuz, or something. Lu Yuz Book of Tea. We'll return to Lu Yuz in history. Now, in Romance of the Three Kingdoms, I remember there's some guy named Lu Bu who's like a fucking badass, kind of like Mongolian style guy, if I remember correctly, but I'm not really versed in it, so let's keep going. Say, we'll return to this book, the Book of Tea by Lu Yu in the history. So, by 1860, the Assam tea industry was well established. Some trees were planted in Ceylon and Java, and today more Indian tea is grown than Chinese tea. The tea was formerly placed in its own genus, Thea, but is now included within the Camellias. Other Camellia species, such as Camellia roseifera and Camellia japonica, are grown as ornamentals and more like varieties of tea. Ceylon orange, Picot, Earl Grey, Darjeeling, English breakfast, Lapsang Songchong, and Lady Laundry. So the chemistry and pharmacology. Tea contains caffeine twice as much in its dry weight as roasted coffee beans. Oh yeah, because when you have a bag of tea, it's just a little bit, so that's why it's more. But 6 grams of beans go into a cup of coffee compared to only 1.5 grams of tea. A cup of tea usually only contains about half as much caffeine as a cup of coffee. Other than caffeine, the chemistry of these two plants are quite different. The fresh tea leaves contain 20% polyphenols, 17% protein, 4% caffeine, 27% crude fiber, a small amount of beta-carotene, B vitamins, vitamin D, and sorbic acid. The vitamin C remains present in green tea, but is destroyed by roasting and fermenting of black teas. A tannin in tea may be the most toxic constituent, linked to some studies to esophageal cancer. But milk or cream binds to the tannins and it mitigates the danger. On the other hand, by stimulating the digestion, tannin combats the effects of consuming oily or fatty food. Sorry. Catechin, which is like the ECGC thing, and these other compounds in green tea are thought to be antioxidant and anti-carcinogenic. It is said to anyone who smokes cigarettes, they should drink green tea daily. And this is illustration says, ironstone pottery, the tea leaf decoration, a whole leaf, the bottom of a cup was considered auspicious. What? It relates to the Buddha. It's like he only drank tea because it accidentally fell in his cup. I hate to spoil it, but that's the way it goes. Oh, I was gonna say in the other video about Shen Yung, they're like, he discovered weed and he discovered farming. I'm like, he's fucked up on ephedra, man. That's my weird like conspiracy thinking. I'm that far advanced sometimes or whatever. So that's all like, you know, I don't know if it's it's not the devil's advocate. It's like seeing some like weird, a little bit further than the average Joe, I think maybe. So, as I would say, it's said that people who smoke cigarettes should drink tea every day. It says, just don't think that will save you. So, recent studies in the Science News in the year 2000, this is how old the book is, have found that rare and delicate white tea is even more potent as an anti-mutagen than green tea, sometimes by a factor of 5. And when this book came out, white tea was a huge thing. What is it called? I forget. The bottles of dang it. But yeah, no, it was a thing where it was like $7. I remember my ex-girlfriend was like, you're a leech, asked me to buy those white teas, but I'm like, I really liked them. They're yummy. All teas that I like we have this like woody, complex like flavor where it's when you get it in your mouth, it doesn't feel like it's hitting the normal taste receptors, but it still is like you get that sensation. Just looking at how messed up my teeth are because I was going to interject too. I was getting off work. There was a time where the like longest I had been sober by my own accord is I can ask my brothers. I would only drink decaffeinated tea, and it was like kind of like disgusting how much I would drink. I would get those like electric kettles and I would make like fucking 25 bags of tea at the same time and like drink it just like in like, you know, over an evening's course or something like that, and drink that, I don't know, 6 times a week or something. And it's not only that, I mean, this is when I was in my head injury territory, where after a while I became like super obsessive about my health to like just like the craziest degree where yeah, that was like the only thing I did basically for a while, for the most part. This was like 2009 maybe 2000, so you can imagine my brothers getting into all kinds of mischief. Sometimes I would do other stuff or whatever, not really, because I was like, oh, it's like the perfect set. I was trying to like look for like the perfect sedative nootropic that was like, I don't know how to explain it. It seemed like it was gonna be decaf tea, but it wasn't, unfortunately. Like it never seemed, if you look into the chemistry of L-theanine, the amino acid that's like that kind of quality, it does not work on the sedative GABA receptors whatsoever. It works on something called glutamine receptors. So when you take a bunch of L-theanine, it's like you want to go to sleep, and then you'll just like kind of like wake up. It's weird. Or like you'll like feel like your eyes are heavy, but you're not gonna go to sleep. It's weird. Which is kind of related to back to the Buddha, and consequently you'll see. So some of the phenols in the essential oils are dangerous in a middle sort of way. The reputed effects of these essential oils in calming the nerves probably far outweigh the dangers. So it's not that bad. Unless the qualities involved are excessive. The tea also contains small amounts of thiophyllene, a very strong diuretic, or strong, and a more powerful central nervous stimulant than caffeine. Yeah, is theophyllene. It's used for treating asthma and emphysema. And tea is contraindicated for insomniacs, perhaps, and perhaps for the manic. Yeah, but tea. The thing is about these books too, they're not like all written in chronological order, if I can remember correctly. Kind of like, I just hate to compare it to this bit silly, but like Aphex Twin albums. They're not like, oh, I just released the latest one I made. No, it's like little projects here and there, you know what I'm saying, where he was like working on one chapter, then working on another, because this seems really dated to me. Okay. Because it's like one of the easiest things to write back in the day, probably. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to look into all these crazy frontiers of like xenon gas and freaking iboga and all the things. Damn, this is kind of so boring. I wish this is why I was doing the MDMA chapter, but whatever. The more signature names: Silver Needle, White Peony, and the Noble Beauty for white teas from Fujian. I didn't realize talking so much my nose is starting to close up, but I keep going, Henry, keep going. How it's taken is in an infusion. In Thailand, the leaves of wild Camellia sinensis trees called mayang are sold in markets for chewing like betel leaves. These leaves are folded and chewed with a piece of rock salt. The effects, according to Robert Montgomery, are like drinking 5 cups of green tea all at the same time. And I've tried this before, but really, if you want to get into the best thing that is like a, what is it called? A parallel or something with betel, which betel is like a catecholametic kind of thing, like kind of like Hubert, what is it called? Club moss or huperzine or something like that. Some sort of like anti-dementia kind of medicine where it's a stimulant, but it's like, I forget the exact qualities. When I did it, whatever. I've only had betel once, and it was like these super hard rocks and these leaves, and it didn't do anything. It was like, and I've seen like videos of people getting sick eating it, but when I ate it, it was just like, my mouth's all red. I'm like, what the fuck is this? I do want to do it again, but supposedly it's like even more a source of mouth cancer. But I was saying, okay, the parallel to this chewing tea is, it's hilarious, is yerba mate. If you chew yerba mate, it's pretty freaking strong. It's pretty freaking strong. Like, I've had some missions where I'm like, at work, where I'm like, I wanted this day to end fucking 3.5 hours ago. Like, and it's super hot. I'm like running upstairs, and I was chewing the yerba mate instead of just doing the little like sip style, and my god, it was pretty damn strong. It was pretty damn strong. But the thing is, and it was kind of the closest thing that related to that, right? But it was when I had cocoa leaves, where I chewed it, and it was kind of stimulating. But the thing is, if you begin to swallow it, like the whole pieces of tea leaves, it's actually, I think it can fuck up your stomach, or, you know, fuck up your kidneys or something like that. That's why people, I think, don't usually just eat the leaves. They make the tea. There's more chemistry to it in plants. It's called, freaking oxalate crystals, which are found in like green leaves. Supposedly they're like bad for you, and they're in all kinds of plants. For some people, like, I never have spinach, I never have rhubarb. Similarly, it's like, maybe you shouldn't ever just like parachute or whatever, you know, parachute, eat the tea leaves or whatever, or your mate, whatever, cocoa leaves, because it, like I said, it can do some kind of, it's harder on your system, and in just my stomach's hurting kind of way. Anyways, let's move on. Sorry. So this is why I'm doing these books, because I've done fucking nearly everything, and I've studied nearly everything, and not in a way that it's like the traditional war story way, but like the weird, like, you've done like 500 drugs or whatever, and then research them endlessly, and kind of can think of like a few new ones every year. And try a few new ones every year, unfortunately. But I'm trying to, not like fucking crazy, you know, whatever, fentanyl analogs or something like that, but just like weird things. Like I said, the combination of amanita muscaria, magic mushrooms, you know, psilocybin mushrooms, and being like, this is completely different. Or, yeah, so there's some other things. I'm not going to get into it right now, but it's more so now. I kind of like graduated enough where I can like kind of see new frontiers, and it's kind of weird. And I don't know, some people are like, that's bad or whatever, but I find it remarkable because there's a lot of information out there about it that so okay, the effects of tea are it quickens the spirit and soothes the stomach. Now, mind you, right now, I am drinking a little bit of yerba mate too. But I couldn't find my little metal straw. So I just do this trick where I go. I use my teeth as like a little, whatever, pasta, what's it called? Screen, whatever you want to call it. I'm just trying to be funny because of the thing. But one thing I've noticed when I do this, and don't use the straw, is you can get sick quite easily. Like somehow the little bits of plant matter getting lodged in your like tonsils, it's like a guarantee you're gonna get sick by doing it. It's very weird. So it's like, yeah, there's reasons why people do these, you know, things one way or the other, I think, and not one way or the other. But there's still some. It's not like, you know, things to learn necessarily, but like impressions of, you know, maybe like in the other LSD book, it talks about it in this weird way where I'm like, oh, okay. Well, this is why people learn do these things, all this crazy stuff. But anyway, let's go. So the ally, the reason why it is addictive or whatever, it's not only addictive, but what is its like character? It's spirit or something. What it is, you know. We were talking about God earlier, and it's like kind of like a, you know, what, I don't know. Let's get into it. Let's see what it says. Okay. Surely, who's this? Thomas De Quincey. Surely, everyone is aware of the divine pleasures which attend a wintry fireside. Candles at 4 o'clock, warm hot rugs, tea, and a fair tea maker. Shutters closed, curtains flowing in, and ample draperies on the floor, whilst the wind and rain are raging audibly without. Thomas De Quincey, Confessions of an English Opium Eater. Very, very old school book. That's like the first trip report, I think, if I remember correctly, or the first at least like weed eating hashish, according to Terrence McKenna. Okay, he says this Mr. Thomas De Quincey. It says a poison path adept. Oh yeah, no, because he's like did all these medicines and whatever, these different poisons, and would write about what does it do or something like that in the 1800s in these weird, like, you know, very formal kind of long-winded ways. So the plant, back to the plant. One story tells the tea was discovered in 2737 BCE by Sheng Nung, the guy I was talking about, the legendary plant doctor, who could test scores of poison on his own body in a single day and then find the antidotes for each of them. A great doctor. He was boiling water to make his dinner when some tea leaves were blown into the kettle by the wind. He drank the infusion, felt refreshed and invigorated, and recognized the plant's sublime virtues. So Shen was a Taoist sage. This is why I also want to get into this, to try and educate people about Buddhism or whatever in Chinese history. Is like there are, it was just like Jesus, there are historic Buddhas, as they think, but they're viewed in like a divine sense, kind of not only like in a supernatural way, but also like what is it called when a king is like sent by God or something like that. And I think there's a few different ones. I'm not really big into Buddhism, but he really got me started a little bit more than usual. I tried to buy like a Zen book, too hard, but he really got me into it. So Shen Neng was a Taoist sage, or even Taoism is different than Buddhism, but whatever. Let's just try and learn. So long before Lao Tzu or Chen Tzu, both those guys, long before them, when they had articulated Taoist philosophy, these sages were plant people. Now, Taoists emphasize the individuality and freedom, contrasted with the Confucian ideas of hierarchy and duty. Though Confucianists might term them as harmony and tradition. Confucianism was they were stronger in northern China, and Taoism was in the south. Very true. If you look into like people who worship the different Taoist things, it's always like in South China. That's and it's like a very, very different kind of style. I don't know how to explain it. I wish I could, but regardless, he's saying about them being plant people. It's like they not only were seeking the mushroom of immortality, but instead of being like tied to Confucius, I don't know how to explain it. It has to do with writing. These ideas about, oh, you know, the Confucianists are the wisest or whatever. That Taoists were like somehow like ironic or something like that, or like silly. It's hard to. Yeah, we'll have to see. But yeah, they through their writing, they were the first who were humorists or something. So they were in the south, and the Confucianism is in the north, very much stronger. But the south was the land of tea. And it was the southern China that Taoism, with its emphasis on emptiness and yin, was most assimilated into Buddhism as Changyan or Zen in Japanese. So it's not Changyan, it's Chan or something like that instead of Zen. Thus, another story relates that tea was a gift of the Bodhidharma, the Indian sage who had came from the West and founded Shan Buddhism. I always thought that, I didn't realize that they were saying that Bodhidharma was coming from the West, but yeah, I had a different interpretation of what that meant. But yeah, some kind of like other version of the Buddha. I thought, you know what I'm saying? It's like there, through the aeons, that there was this Buddha and this Buddha and that Buddha and that Buddha. I guess that kind of makes sense with like reincarnation. So when the Bodhidharma first arrived in China, he was called before the Emperor Wu. And Wu was a scholar as well as a warrior. After he had overthrown his lord and set up his own kingdom in the southern China, he had become a great patron of religion. He was particularly interested in Buddhism, so when he had heard that a great sage had arrived from India, he was anxious to meet him. By the end of the interview, his feeling that these feelings had changed. So, what was it about Wu? Emperor Wu asked, I have endowed many temples and aided many monks. What is my merit? The Bodhidharma asks, no merit at all. Look, try it again. What is the first principle of the holy teaching? The Bodhidharma answered, vast emptiness. Nothing is whole, or nothing holy. That's the first teaching. He says, who asks, who is confronting me? And Bodhidharma answered, I don't know. See, they were like a little weird. I don't know how to explain it. You have to keep looking at it. It's not very long. I think all the Taoist writings, it's maybe like 20 books or maybe 200 like short ones, but yeah, it's their style. Well, after this interview, let's get the picture. This guy looks a lot like Shen Yun. What's it say? It is a drawing of the Bodhidharma by Hakyun Durahama. Get those Chinese letters to look at it later. I don't know what that means. Either the old school, or it's called traditional Chinese. It's so like scribbly scratchy in some of these paintings, but I guess you could still kind of read it. But to me, I was like, wait, this is a Chinese lettering? Like, I mean, it took me a second. I hate to say that, but it's, you know, it looks so artistic that it's like, oh, okay. And it's also traditional Chinese, so it's like a little bit different. Anyways, back. So these two good. After these interviews, Bodhidharma travels to the north. He crossed the Yellow River on a reed and retired in the mountains to the Shaolin Temple, where he sat for 9 years facing a wall. Once, after 4 years of sitting, overcome by fatigue, the bearded barbarian fell asleep. To prevent the reoccurrence of such a lapse, he cut off his eyelids and threw them on the ground. From the ground grew 2 tea plants with leaves shaped like eyelids. Some say that after the end of 9 years, the Bodhidharma's legs fell off. So weird. So yeah, it kind of makes sense though, because if you go to Japan, that's where Zen is, and Zen is like a little bit more of just like the chilling, and you know what I'm saying, you know, just doing the sesshin and trying to clear your mind, while Taoists do a little bit more like whatever fanfare, kind of like, oh, this is the monkey god, this is this, that, this is that, and this is that. It's kind of like weird, silly, I think, and not weird, you know what I'm saying, it's especially different in a way, now looking from the perspective of communist China, you know what I'm saying, it is a little bit different, and it's like, it is more, but whatever, let's keep going. This is what I was saying though, that how strange some of these stories are though, that he, after looking at a wall for 9 years, he cut off his own eyelids. And then that's where tea comes from. Okay, so this drinking tea is attested in a Chinese document 3 centuries before the Bodhidharma's arrival in the year 542. In no way diminishes the truth from this story. It is the Buddhist temples that tea drinking particularly flourished and spread. In the Shan sect, made tea drinking part of their ritual. They offered tea to the Buddha and shared tea from a past cup. Chiang Shang, in the earlier Tang teacher who instructed the distinctive non-hierarchical organization structure that the first defined Cheyenne. Sorry. Sometimes how these page breaks are too much for me. Wait. Piashang, the early Tang teacher who initiated the distinctive non-hierarchical organization structure that first defined Shang as an independent sect, is said to included rules regarding tea drinking. And Pai Shang broke with Buddhist tradition and made farming and other and other kinds of work as regular monastic practice. Like you live at the monastery, you do those things. This is a quote too. Sorry. A day without work is a day without eating. Pai Xiang, called Haikujuko or Hayakujo in Japanese, also gave some thought to the law of cause and effect, and perhaps is best known for once giving a full Buddhist funeral to a body of a fox. I've heard of Hayajuko, I think, in there's a YouTuber who talks about being a Zen student in Japan, and he's a pretty cool dude, pretty cool Western dude, but yeah, I think it's about like I said, the weird like wrong, like the anti-answers or something like that, but even stranger, like giving a whole funeral procession to a fox, kind of like how the Buddhists are like never kill any animals whatsoever, right? Anyways, this just goes back so far. It's kind of like lore. So, how would a fox drink tea? Tea appears in a number of Zen stories, mundos, and koans. Chao Shao said that have a cup of tea to 3 different monks. Shuzhang once ran out of strength while cultivating a tea plot with Xia Xian. And Lin Qian is like to bury people alive while he tilled the tea. Yan parched the tea with good fortune, and Sophia enjoyed tea after rice. Elder Lang once spilled tea and created a ruckus with the kettle gods. I think this is all historic little things, and like this book is all about, like I said, all the different weird characteristics, blah 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 blah. Many Tian temples were in the mountains and ideal for tea country. And many such monasteries cultivated tea and processed the leaves. If not an actual cash crop, tea was at least a refined, valued commodity to offer visiting dignitaries and prospective patrons. The Yuan Dynasty tea vendors. Cool dudes. They got their boxes with them too. Bricks of tea. And little pots of gong fu. If you read gong fu, it's like, instead of kung fu, it's tea ceremony. But I think it's also used in a different sense too. Nowadays, it's like a political thing. Okay. Xie Xiang, who was also known for his friendship with the iron grindstone Hilia and the mountain nun, once beat a drum to signal for everyone to go out and work the tea gardens. After everyone had been picking tea leaves all day, Xie Xian said to Yang Shan, all day, as we are picking leaves, I had heard your voice, but I have not seen your essence. Show me your original self. Yu Xiang grabbed a tea tree and shook it. Qiu Xiang said, you have attained only the function, not the essence. Yang Shan answered, I wonder how you would ask the question. Qiu Xiang was silent. Yang Shan said again, you have attained only the essence and not the function. Qiu Xiang responded, I absolve you from your 20 blows. The book is called The Transmission of the Lamp. Yeah, one of my favorite movies of all time is called Akira Kurosawa's Ran, which is kind of is like Romance of the Three Kingdoms style. There's 3 boys that the king has to speak to, but has to not speak to, but it's a parallel of King Lear. So he has to choose between his 3 sons who gets everything or something like that, and who doesn't. And it's very strange. It's like this very much. There's like the old king man is like wandering, like, it's just like complete craziness and all these giant wars. It's really, really wild. The costumes were award-winning. I just love that movie so much, but it is very much like this, a little bit extra confusing. So the pre-Xiang tea was probably used medicinally more often than socially, and a piece of writing dated in the year 222 mentions tea as a substitute for wine. Early tea was boiled, usually along rice, ginger, orange peel, and other spices, and even milk. The effects. According to the Taoists, tea relieves fatigue. It delights the soul, strengthens the will, repairs the eyesight. Tea was an essential ingredient in the elixir of immortality. Now, I know there's definitely some times when I've been, like, if there's a more powerful stimulant, like, messing with me, that when I drink yerba mate, at least, it's like, I think it'll be stronger. And it's not stronger, it's weaker. You know what I'm saying? It's like they don't piggyback together or whatever. They don't, I don't know what the right word is. They don't synergize to where it's potentiating the effects of other stimulants. It can actually make other stimulants weaker. It's very strange. And I was just recently thinking about this today, because I know some people are like, oh, fuck that drug, this drug is better, that drug, fuck this drug, fuck that drug. But the thing is, if you look into psychopharmacology and receptor, whatever, pharmacology, sometimes some drugs, they cannot combine whatsoever. And I had, like, a good example is, like, say, cocaine or ecstasy. A lot of people, when they try it together, neither one works. And some people are like, yeah, it does, some it doesn't. But there are studies out there. It's like, it can only fit this much of this thing in, or that thing. You know, it'll boot it. You know, something. Right? Yeah. And not only that, if you are interested in it, look into, they call it liver enzymes and the different effects that are called enzyme inhibitors or enzyme inducers. For example, if you have a bottle of Xanax or oxycodone or whatever, it'll sometimes say, do not have grapefruit juice. Well, that's because it makes it stronger, sometimes in a very dangerous way, or at least it's extra addictive, definitely. I could say so myself. So, or, you know, other things too, poppies or whatever, if you drink it, you have to have the coatings to make the morphine in your liver, blah, blah, blah. It's like why some people don't like snort Vicodin or shoot up Vicodin or something like that. It's because sometimes you have to have your internal system make it work. And that's why my particular, I hate to go into this and give away my secrets, but my secret is never smoking. You know, just always try and eat the things. Always, and try and be wary of all the things, the ways that things work. I don't know how to explain it, but I am just very anti-smoking, and the other parallels too, mostly for definitely anti-smoking, definitely anti-shooting, because even if you shoot something, sometimes it won't make it in your liver. It's bizarre, but yeah, that's the keys. I don't know. At least I think so. I don't know, I'm gonna get into what just the kind of character that it has, but sometimes it goes quite further, you know. I've heard other people say, you know, don't, if you eat it, you know, buy the ticket, take the ride. Well, exactly, you know. Anyways, I could go into it further a little bit, like with, I've had experiments. I hate to get into this, but it's kind of important in a way because it shows how different things are. But with like methamphetamine, is definitely when you smoke it, I've had where you can't stop looking at the ground trying to pick up crumbs that aren't there. That like would only happen when you smoke it because it hits so much harder. Your brain gets so much out of whack from the dopamine upset or something like that. You begin, I've tried the carpet surfing, or I forget, hand vacuuming. They have other names too, but where you think that I'm like slightly exaggerating, but it can go on for like 10 hours at a time. it's pure autistic, and not autistic, but you know, pure. What is the right word? Like, people aren't, you know, it's explained as people aren't necessarily like evil addicts. They just they become like retarded or something like that. You know, I hate to say that word, but it's not that, because retardation is a completely different thing, and those people are nothing like it in a way too. But it's a you know, it's like it's beyond just like a health problem. It's what it does is it makes people like God damn it, I have another book about it, but I'll read sometime. So let's get back to the thing. It's completely off the topic of Taoist sages, blah blah blah, and finding the elixir of immortality, whatnot. Well, this plant tea was in the 8th century. In the creative years of the Tang Dynasty, tea drinking became fully into its own, drunk for its own sake, recreationally, we might say, and not as just as a medicine. Tea's medicinal values were certainly recognized, not at least being that boiled water was safe to drink, but tea drinking diminished the spread of waterborne infectious diseases, resulting in lower mortality rates and a rapid expansion of the Chinese population. Tiang tea was pressed into cakes, which were shaved off and boiled. And these tea cakes were even used as currency. You know, cake tea was spread by caravan to Mongolia, Tibet, Turkestan, places where it is still drunk in that form today. The Russians also drink cake tea. Western Europeans were getting their tea by sea, and the Russians were importing tea 3,000 miles by caravan from Kyatia, the south lake of Baikal, on the Mongolian border, and in itself thousands of miles across the Gobi Desert from Peking. By 1796, at the end of the reign of Catherine the Great, Russians were consuming 6,000 camel loads of tea per year. That's crazy. From the south all the way to Russia, 6,000 camel loads. It's like about the Silk Road or whatever. I'll say one more other thing too. What was interesting is with the methamphetamine experiments or whatever it is, when you eat it, this happened like 6 times. I wouldn't get that freaking, what do they call it? It's called stereotypies or it's like the word stereotype, but it's like a mental stereotypies where you can't stop doing the same motion over and over and over again. Seems kind of like called the tweaker dance. This is not the tweak chapter, whatever it is. What happened when I would eat it though, so ridiculous, is I'd be walking down the street, and then when you get to the crosswalk, just keep walking. And then also the car's like, because you have your headphones in, you just keep walking. And then all of a sudden, fucking the car's like running for you, and you're like, oh fuck, I just walked out in front of the street. And it would happen a lot. It would only happen when you do that way. It's ridiculous. It's so silly. Well, I mean, it's not silly, but it's like proof about how its effects can happen gradually or rapidly and all that, how it affects the brain. But it happened about 6 times, and I would laugh about it, and other people were addicts. You know, it was just like, that's bad. It still is bad. I could go into even worse things, like in regards to like coitus. But yeah, I've never been a person that ever intravenously used methamphetamine, but I've done it. Mostly it was about all eating and then snorting and then smoking. For the most part, but yeah, they're completely different things. But it's weird because in this chapter, he claims that for the stimulant addict, tea is a better answer. Damn, I'm getting thirsty. So, perhaps of the ceremonial drinking of tea in the monasteries. Brewing and serving and drinking tea began to be viewed as an art form, a social art. This ritualistic aspect of tea drinking became fully developed in China during the Sung period, and from Sung China, powdered tea spread to Japan, where it reached in apotheosis in Shenyang, its tea ceremony. I made a terrible joke a couple of years ago, though, about like on Instagram there would always be people are like, "What are you talking about?" About the purple drink, people drinking coating cough syrup, and the hip hop culture, they love to always be like posting pictures of like tons of that and like tons of like ridiculous, like it was like to one up each other. Sometimes with like anime bitches. I have a little bit of pictures where it was like, even the theme was like it was like on a forum. It's like, make art that is, the theme is syrup and anime bitches, and then I'll show the ones with split screen. Now if I split screen, just stop this shit. So, but I was like, that is the modern tea ceremony. So stupid, but just the way that that drug like makes people zened out as well to some degree, but no, to a crazy degree. You know what I'm saying? Where you fall asleep and all that stuff. Some weed, but yeah. You're gonna be, some people are like, what are you fucking talking about? Well, it's just as tea became a pricey commodity. This cough syrup, it would go for like thousands of dollars sometimes, and I don't know why people liked it. It didn't make any sense. I could go into it more, these like crazy parallels, like if you're a chemist, then you can get your hand, like I said, this other chapter, if you get your hands on codeine, if you're a good chemist, you can make it morphine to heroin. Like, you don't have to go through all the steps. So that's why I think some people were obsessed about it in a cultural way from the very start. But so stupid. Okay. The ally again. From Okakura Kakuza, the Book of Tea. Teaism is the art of concealing beauty, that you may discover it, and suggesting that you dare not reveal. It is the noble secret of laughing at yourself calmly, yet thoroughly, and it is thus humor itself, a smile of philosophy. Again, Akakira Kuzozo, the Book of Tea. The Tang nobility took to tea as a high culture, and tea was a tribute that was imposed on the mountainous communities where tea was cultivated or wild grew. The finest leaves went to the son of heaven himself. Once prized variety was called monkey tea. It was made from the top leaves of wild tea trees that grew deep in the mountains. It could only be picked by a trained monkey. This is how it gets into this weird art form. So by the end of the 8th century, 30,000 people were needed to pick, steam, dry, roll, and prepare the tea tribute. Work that lasted for a month. The mountain people were forbidden to sell the tea themselves. It says something about government. That's what he says in the italics. Okay. The demands of farmers and villagers became even more severe in the following centuries, where tea cakes became the central country's main trading commodity for the northern tribes from whom they had needed horses. In the wild nomads on the frontiers, a bureaucratic blunder or failure in the tea crop could even trigger an invasion, or like a war or whatever. Let's see, what's he? Mine is a little bit more complex because usually it'd be just like a, what do you call it? This is like, what is going on? But usually it's like an indistinct kind of deal, with like an anime bitch, 2 fucking bottles of fucking Cody and like an Impala or Impreza or something like that. But mine was a little bit different. This is DJ Screw and Trayvon saying codeine is a higher dose of DXM, which it isn't. And then DJ Screw died from drinking, you know, whatever. What is the other one? This other one, what is this? Is ridiculous. Just, oh my gosh, can I show this one? I can't believe I made this. And behind them is like a really old bottle of fucking Activist or whatever, cough syrup. Like, whatever. Yeah, this doesn't even make any sense. Stupid. This one's my favorite though. Oh my gosh, this shit. I could do this. I'll be fine probably. Wow. But yeah, no, these kinds of like weird purple things were like everywhere for like years and years. From like 2010 to like 2017, 2018. But regardless, fuck you, codeine cough syrup. Go back to this. But it's funny how they're saying that it became an art form as well. Okay, in the late 8th century, a stuttering poet named Le composed the great classic of tea, the Shashang. This was a book translated 1,000 years later by George Williamson. The Shashang was a 3-volume work that covered every aspect of Shashang culture: botany, cultivation and grading, descriptions of the implements used in the preparation and brewing, and anecdotes about famous tea drinkers. The Shashang became the Bible of tea, and Luhya was said to be able to identify not only any tea that was offered, but also the source of the water that it came from. And his skill was tested by the emperor himself. Luhya was always a disappointment to his father because he had embraced Confucianism instead of Buddhism. And Luhya eliminated all the additives to the tea except salt, which continued to be added to tea until the Sung, like the Sung dynasty. He thought it was abominable to even add jasmine blossoms to tea. He wrote that the best tea water was from mountain springs that flowed over rocks with no moss. And mountain springs with moss were the second best, and followed by river water and then well water, and considered blue to be the best color of the interior of a cup. I just want to interject again. This is something is that even jasmine I've heard has ibogaine in it, maybe star jasmine or something like that. I don't know if it's just the ornamental, but that flavor is amazing. It's kind of similar to a good cup of tea, but yeah, jasmine tea. Well, it kind of tastes kind of too much like perfume, but yeah, iboga. I have stories to tell. I could still, like I said, I have stories. Where's this? You see this? Fantastica, Excitanica. What is it? Inebrianta, Thanatopathia, and then Fantastica again. And then it, you know, what is it further even? Evanetia, Telephorica, Charismatica, Hypnotica, and Metaphysica. And then it even goes further, kinds of qualities in Pathogenica, Demonica, Rhapsodica, and Pacifica. And this is like, I don't know, can you see this? All the details? Man, why is it not mirrored? God damn it. Well, regardless, I have started to tell about every single one, but yeah, so that iboga, I've only had this weaker kind of thing called Africana vocanga seeds, which are nowadays are converted by chemists into ibogaine to some extent. But I know, and that made me quit methamphetamine for a while, a long time ago in the year 2004, 5, something like that, where it was weird. It was like, they say it's anti-addictive, and I really didn't notice anything like that. Like, you kind of just like, tripped out stoned, and like you get like ringing ears. But I noticed there's this one time when I quit where if you go into how tolerance works, tolerance of effects, or anti-tolerance, or intolerance, or something like that, in these crazy science studies, what it did is it made the side effects strong enough to where I was like, I don't need this anymore. It was weird. It was very weird. Yeah, to a strong degree. And back then, I remember this is when I smoked lots of bud, and I remember having lots of anxiety. Ugh, it was terrible. Lots of chest pains, all that shit, all the time. All the time. And like, at this point though, even eating that style back when I first started eating, just like tiny crumbs of meth, still would be like, when I had that effect after I did the vocanga seeds, it was like just crazy chest pains, and I was like, fuck. And then it was like this crazy adventure. Right when I did it too, my parents are like, you know what, fuck you, you're fucking a leech, and they're like, you gotta leave. And I had to go all the way on this crazy mission across town to my friend's house and to start living there. Oh, it's kind of endearing to the effects of iboga, where it was like a couple days long, and you don't think it's that long, but it's like something has been going on for multiple days, and that's yeah. But it's weird. In jasmine, I have to look into that more. Sorry to detour this so hard, but it's just so weird, you know what I'm saying? These fucking tea masters who are like the gods of tea. Oh, another Tang poet who loved tea was Lu Qiang, the tea daughter. I forgot what that means. I had a friend named Mark Daughter. Lu Qiang was enough of a Taoist adept to declare that compared to the taste of tea, he didn't care a bit about immortality. It's hilarious. It's so fucking funny. And that's what I'm talking about. Sometimes these things are funny. You know, I was saying so that long ago, they were witty. It tastes so good, you don't even care about the becoming immortal. So days and evenings alike, he brewed tea, and he composed poems that included the famous Song of Tea. The first bowl clearly moistens my lips and throat. The second banishes my loneliness. The third chases through all dullness to clarify every word I have ever said. The fourth brings on a light sweat. It cleanses away life's troubles. And the fifth purifies my soul. The sixth beckons me to the immortals. And the seventh is my limit. A light breeze breaks from my sleeves. Which is related to, we were talking about queerness or whatever in ancient China. It has to do something like, they call it the long sleeve, where it's like the two dudes or whatever, their buddies or whatever, they love each other so much that one of them is like sleeping on his sleeve, and he's like, I'll cut it off so you can just sleep on the sleeve and you deal with it. Aww, it's corny a little bit. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't know. Yeah. But I thought it was cute. Sometimes, yeah, this is personal and impersonal stuff, man. Jesus. The light breeze breaks mice leaves. Or maybe it has to do with like understanding between people and all that stuff too. No, Asyang tea bowls were wooden containers, not at all small. We can recognize Chung as a master of our method. Oh, yeah, just go real back quick. Why would I talk about jasmine and that? Is that there's a lot, I think, in China. Oh, well, there's certain areas of the world where, like, for example, Oaxaca, there's a lot of hallucinogenic mushrooms. There's mushrooms, there's salvia, there's Camellia, there's a few more, I can't remember. Oh, morning glory seeds, Hawaiian baby woodrose seeds, and then just as much, there's the Amazon, where there's a lot of like weird mixture stuff going on with ayahuasca, and then lastly though, in Africa, for example, the way that the soil is, I think, is what is it? It has enough nitrogen in it or something like that, where maybe it has to do with like what they call it when you tease a plant or you stress a plant, and it makes it stronger. Well, the ibogaine or iboga, whatever, in Africa, it's, I think, unique to that only because of its soil. It stresses enough to where it makes these. If you go into the shapes of it, it's unique. It's not found anywhere else. Well, if you look back to China, well, I would bring up jasmine and its potential iboga containing alkaloids, etc. What is it? Is that if China was behind in science compared to England, the Western world, then there may be still a lot to learn. And I discussed this actually with Dale by email one time about, I have to look what this name of tea is, but it was like Shang or something, and it didn't look like normal tea. It looked like tree leaves, but when we drank it, oh my god, the amount of catechins or whatever that was in it, disgusting. It was like 3 or 4 times stronger than the strongest black tea I've ever had. It was, and I guess it's closely related to, they call it the black drink of the Americas, I would guess. I think I looked into it, but where they said it had about 5 times more caffeine by weight than coffee or tea or something like that. It tasted disgusting. But there's a little ayahuasca trick too about all this. Let me get into this too. Is when you brew ayahuasca, I was saying, when I had this jurema, or whatever they call it, jurema, with the mimosa stylus, it has this like perfume taste. But besides that, these catechins that are in tea are very, very strongly present. It is just disgusting. Like I said, it's more akin to just drinking incense than a drink. It's very weird. But there's a trick. Is if you use, I believe, egg whites, like he was saying, the catechins help your digestive system with oily foods, but it could be bad for you. Well, there's a trick. I guess you put egg whites in it, and then it will like completely absolve it. Where, like I said in the very start of this chapter, I had boiled black tea so long, I'm talking about like 4 hours, maybe 20 bags of tea, taken out of the bag, boiling for like 4 hours in this pot. And it's boiling down. And you notice that this is like the most taste. Boiling down. It's beginning to like crisp the sides of the pot significantly. This pot is never going to be clean. It was kind of fucked up. They're like, you fucking fucked up the pot. But you boil it down, and you can see like the leaves, they begin to just like break apart just by boiling. They're no longer like solid leaves. They turn into like this paper quality. Boiling down, and all of a sudden, there's no freaking bitterness at all. It's very strange. Maybe this started the whole thing about alchemy and a lot of this stuff, because it's completely different, and you wouldn't think that boiling it to that point would make it, but it is. It's very strange. anyways, yeah, sometimes I've done that recently, or if I have some plant or whatever and it's like stuck in my mouth, it's kind of disgusting. Like getting, like I said, these hemp seeds or coconut oil, but drinking it kind of gets it out of your mouth. There's other tricks too, I forget, but let's keep going. So, how it is taken. This is where I think the book was like, this is a little bit dated and weird, but for those inclined to access the drug abuser types who are not already insufflating caffeine, people who aren't doing that but they're still drug addicts, tea is better than coffee. See, back in the day though, that was a big kind of we were talking, I don't know how to explain it, but the, you know, unerowed, desperate teenagers snorting what's called caffeine tablets was definitely a bigger thing than now. But there is intranasal caffeine too nowadays, but yeah, I don't know what to say about it. Okay, so it is really a better beverage than coffee, though there is less alkaloids in a cup of tea. One can consume a cup after cup as well as would be the case for coffee, as liquefying one's insides. I guess they're talking about just shitloads of black tea. You'll still have diarrhea. So, sorry, one second. And you're gonna say, okay, well, who cares about ibogaine? Like, what? Like, that's some crazy stuff that, you know, the weirdest heroin addicts would do, right? One second. Well, I'll put it in another story another time, but I had this substance called memantine, which is a dissociative like iboga. It lasts long. It lasted maybe about 3 days long, like iboga does, and it was very strange because at the time I was vaping, and it was kind of like trippy, like kind of sedative. I don't think Jasmine's gonna do this, regardless. This is why it's important. These things is, it was kind of like a weird, like kind of like you're really drunk, but not really drunk, but like hungover drunk, and at the same time like just kind of like slightly tripping. You'll be like thinking about stuff, but it lasts so long that you begin to like it really can put a big effect in you. Like I said, I've never done ibogaine. I want to in some ways, but this was so strong where all of a sudden, if you try and do any drug, it's like it doesn't work anymore. It was crazy. It completely like overrode all my receptors, I guess you could say. And I try and drink some caffeine in the morning. No. I try and do this. No. I try and do this, whatever medicine. No. It just wouldn't do it. I try and vape. No. It wouldn't do any kind of like rewarding thing. It was crazy. And it began to like make me like really maniacal. Or not maniacal, but I was like, I just bought a new vape for $100. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck this. And I fucking threw it out the window. And I was like, and I was just like laughing like, it was very, very strong. I'm like, you know what? And they talk about it, power in the iboga shamanism or whatever. The key to get over the addiction is to have power over it or something like that. And that's what it do. And it was crazy. I was like, you know what? I just woke up and I still got to go to work, and I'd still go to work, and I'm like working all day and like in this like weird haze. And some people are like, yeah, I don't want you to be in this fucked up K-hole for 3 days. Like they say, it's a dissociative kind of like ketamine. But it's also a medicine for like autism, all this stuff. It's kind of a weird sort of kind of situation. I don't want to get into too much, but it is very important to me when I tried it. But yeah, I was like days and days, and it kept being like this thing where nothing was rewarding. And I was like, you know what? Life is rewarding. It was crazy. It was so incredibly powerful and different than normal hallucinogens. Sorry to get up to whatever, take a break. But this memantine, which I said, its shape is, if you look at iboga's unique structure because of the alkaloids and whatever, the soil in Africa, it looks like if you take the activator part, not the DMT of ayahuasca, the harmaline, or they used to call it telepathy. It's like this big, like benzoyl, I forget what they call it, but it's like these three. It's that. But more importantly, what iboga has is, you say this, it has like this like weird like pentagon shape with like a trapezoid spinning out. And that element, I guess, if I don't know if it's directly like ibogaine, it just looks similarly to me in chemistry. I'm kind of a chemistry novice, but memantine is related to the element called adamantidine, which was just a chemical that was like isolated from gasoline. And this chemical from gasoline was like a crystalline substance from gasoline, from the soil in the ground, that it not only there's medicines derived from it, adamantine type drugs like memantine, but it also has different sorts of engineering properties. Where's the right word? I don't know. Some sort of other properties to adamantidine. Even X-Men, Wolverine's claws are an adamantidine, but it's like diamond metal, like a diamond metal that's made from oil and gasoline from the ground. It's weird, but yeah, no, that memantine's it pretty much saved my life. I'm back on fucking doing nicotine, but oh my god, man, this thing was like, you know what, the best example of something that I could get over is fucking nicotine. And I'm like, ah! It was crazy. And yeah, it was very long lasting. At the time too, my cousin died, and I went completely insane. Like, I do not ever want to suggest that anybody try that one particularly, because like I said, it lasts for like 3 days long. It's a dissociative, kind of like PCP, but it lasted for 3 days. My cousin died, and I remember just driving in my car at work, just crying super hard, like, ah, ah, crying. And yeah, it was very, very intense. It was like the dark night of the soul. If you've ever heard of what is that? Some English writing. God damn it! If Dr. Howell is here to tell me, but the idea about like, being attacked by demons or something like that in the night. It was like that. Like, it was weird because let's get back to this, but yeah, it's a very fascinating drug. The thing is, though, what is particularly different versus normal, like psychedelic hallucinogens, which usually it's like dancing, like, not dancing, but you know what I'm saying, imagination or this or that, it's changing colors, non-stop colors, or other times you walk around and it's like, or DMT where you're like, well, this was different when this came on. I hate to do this, but this is why some pharmaceutics are very different. Is when this came on, it was like I would just see something, like I would see the Pink Floyd like trap. What's it called? The thing shooting the light with the rainbows. I'd see that, but it just gets stuck in my head for like 45 minutes straight. Or the other time I did it too, it was like seeing the skyscrapers, the Empire State Building, being smashed by tidal waves. But it would just keep doing this for like 30-40 minutes, just over and over and over again. And you're like conscious, and you're like, what the fuck? I cannot stop seeing this. It was so weird. Like I said, the purple diamonds or the Empire State Building were two examples where it's not like other things where you just see it and it goes away. You know what I'm saying? Or, it's so fleeting or ephemeral. This was like, it just gets stuck in your head, and it like this weird, it's not like, some people say like weird, like, I forgot what they call it, like other things where if you take Benadryl and you can't stop seeing spiders. No, but this was like hallucinations in a clear, like, mental clarity way, but it was like so weird how it just be stuck. You just keep going for like 40 minutes, and then, but this probably is proof how long it lasts. You wake up the next day and all of a sudden it's like, and like colors are like, oh man, I remember playing the video game being like, Marvel being like, they updated these colors, man. They updated these colors. This is just rad. And being like, you're seeing the colors differently. I mean, maybe it was different because that's how their arcades or whatever in the video card works. But yeah, I begin to see it in real life too, where I'm like, okay, they didn't update any colors. I'm just like in this fucking weird mental like fog, or that's the right word, like pigeonhole or something like that. I can't remember. He talks about it in the stimulant chapter, but it's kind of different than that too. Yeah, because it's so complex. Ibogaine is very complex in the fact that it hits every single receptor in your body, supposedly. It's that complex of a drug. And, yeah, except maybe I think GABA. And I think it's like ketamine, I think, does similar to that, but not as much. Yeah, I don't know. It's so weird because, like I said, it's this molecule where it's one thing, ayahuasca, and then it's this other thing, this adamantine thing. And they try and make a medicine based off it. They're like, we can make ibogaine, but you don't hallucinate. And they just make that benzoyl, like whatever, 3 carbon structure. I forgot what they called it, but people are like, this shit sucks. The whole point of it is you hallucinate enough to where you're like, oh, okay, I get over this. And I was saying, oh, no, it's not that thing. It's just that adamantine and whatever, the tail, the function group. I forgot, I don't know, sure what they call it, but yeah. It was really, 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 really radical. And if the thing that Star Jasmine to have it, I mean, it's just that's around us a lot, like at the bowling alley or whatever, at courthouses, is a funny idea, but I don't know if it's entirely that way. Anyways, back to green tea, back to oolong tea, what else they call it. I forget what Mapo likes. The cake tea. There's some word for it, though. Oh, there's somebody saying in Google, it's bringing up jasmine has benzodiazepines in it. That's weird, because usually benzodiazepines come from potatoes in the first place, but yeah. DMT Nexus 2018. Has anybody extracted ibogaine from the night or star jasmine? I'm only getting into this because this freaking shit to some people is boring, so I'm like, I gotta bring in the most hardcore war story, like I said, where you're like tripping for days and you're like, I was ready to throw every single thing out, but I'm like, I'm gonna freak people out if I do that. I'll just get rid of my nicotine. That's a good first step. And people are like, what are you talking about? You're crazy. You got completely crazy. No, but the thing is, how it works is, it's not that it reverses your addictive quality, it's that it changes how your tolerance to everything is in some different ways, where it's all of a sudden this or that. Ibogaine has some even more crazier stories, like people hallucinate that they had all the heroin with them and on the airplane, all of a sudden it's not there. You never even had the heroin in the first place. It's like, it's very intense, you know. Ibogaine people push to the absolute limit. But sometimes because of the way that like the drug tourism works, they do that way, where they're like, oh, okay, you're coming here from the other side of the world, we're gonna give you just the freaking hardest we ever can. You know what I'm saying? That's what's dangerous actually about it. What's safe about it is having access to it in the right amount of ways. But there still is some amazing results regardless. Anything about it? It says if you have 50,000 grams of leaves and stems, you can get 20 grams of ibogaine and a few other alkaloids. What? Who says that? Your name is Ale. Okay. I don't know. I guess it probably... The thing is, if you've become a plant person like me or whatever, sometimes it's the regions that have it, or you know what I'm saying, certain plants have certain qualities where it's not. But this is, it's, some people say, oh, it doesn't have ibogaine, but it has these related things: volcongonine, which is the one I first tried, and when I first tried it, epiracine 9, epivulcanocarinine, coradine, and colophane. All these are related structurally to okay, regardless. Let's go back. But it's strange to think like that could have an effect if you start drinking that combination. Surely, this is gonna go into it. That there are what is it called? The temperance movement was fueled by tea, where it's like the ladies are like, oh, you alcoholic men, you're bad. We drink the tea, and we think that, you know, we know it's good for us, and you're not good for us, blah, blah, blah. And temperance is not all of that for women's suffrage. Maybe. Who knows? I need to get it. I'm going to buy some star jasmine tea or some kind of jasmine tea right now. Okay, as we do this, so. So back to the plant. Its popularity, it grew through the Tang and into the Sung dynasty from 960 to 1279 CE. And how tea house appeared. Its tea contests were popular. 4 teas, 10 cups, in which connoisseurs vied to identify different teas in blind tastings. There was a tea emperor, Hu Song, who wrote about his own detailed and erudite book on 20 different kinds of tea, including the rare white tea. What's it? Green tea, jasmine tea. What is it? I guess I'll do like, was it Japanese? I'm gonna buy this one. Sinpen Cha for $12. Let's see. Okay, anyways, so he had wrote his own detailed and erudite book on 20 different kinds of tea, including the rare white tea, his favorite. Here's we both then. I don't know. Green tea, green, white. I still can't remember what the cake is called. There's even more too. Oh, I gotta bring this up now. What is this called? Shit. I have some over here, but it looks like it's so ridiculous. It's folded in aluminum foil. It looks like heroin tar, but it's a tar of tea, cake, resin. This is insane. This is like, this is where I was like, okay, this is a frontier, another frontier. This is an example of my purest, insanity. What's it called? Pure air. Shit. There's the cake, and it's the fermented cake, extra fermented, extra old, and I guess resinous. But here's the deal. There's a certain point when you do it, they call it the octopus smell, or I call it the fish smell. Regardless, this smell is actually the presence of a chemical called methylamine, which is like it's like a gas or something, 3 different methyl groups bound together. It's not like a usual, amphetamine or phenethylamine. It's just like these 3, like, doing, doing. And I guess it still has some effects though. And when I tried it, this pure resin, I felt bad. I'm not gonna lie. It was just weird. I just felt like bad and weird. But it was like, it was still tasty, kind of amazing, but then sometimes really gross. It was very strange. But the thing is, man, I want to know why in Japanese illustrations, why is there like the woman fucking the octopus? What is that? Because I know the octopus have these chemicals in them too, like a stress hormone, octopamine, related to dopamine, is a stimulant that was, I guess, even harvested from octopuses in present day, and is like, in sports medicine, or what is it called? It was used in pre-workout, blah, blah, blah. and then it was eventually banned because it was unsafe. Well, and it's shitty. I have some stuff close to it, but yeah, I want to know if there's like, is there out there like an octopus where if you fuck it, it's gonna get you fucking stimulated as hell from the octopamine? You're like, you need to be condemned, you need to be lobotomized, etc. You know, was there like octopuses out there? Because you know, there's right now there's like the stonefish, or they call it the tigerfish, that is extremely poisonous. I'm like, well, why would they have from the 1800 drawings of women fucking the octopus? Is it just for sex, or is it for something more? Is it? And they're like, you know, it's like people eat fish to trip nowadays too, to some extent, or I forget what else. They call it. There's a C version of DMT called bromo DMT, and it's like DMT, but I guess it's not as strong. Regardless, it comes from the sea. It comes from like little rocky green colored things. It's very strange of what's out there. There's even more frontiers to learn too. That's why I wanted to get into this very beginning thing, to try and get into this. So sorry to go into those long things, but that's how. Back to the boringer stuff. Okay. So, Hugh Sung also dabbled in poetry and painting, and with some accomplishment, he fell in love with a famous courtesan and shocked his country by exiling her, or her husband, and bringing her into the palace to join his 3,912 wives and concubines. He spent much time worshipping his muse that he neglected his kingdom, and his affairs of state declined. He was eventually deposed by invading Tartars and exiled. So back to his name, Shusyung, translated by John Bulfa. How remote were these youthful dreams of mine from this sad Mongolian wilderness? Ah, where are the hills of my homeland? I must bear the cacophony of barbarous flutes blowing piercingly among the plum blossoms. There was no good tea in Mongolia. There is a moral of this story. Let this be a lesson to you. In the Sung, there were 46 imperial tea plantations, mostly in the south. By best picking time was the month of the excised insects. Another thing too that popped up recently about these cicadas that have some sort of, they call it cathinone stimulants, which is like amphetamine but weaker. Natural amphetamine is not found in nature, it's only synthesized. But cathinone is a close natural thing that I've never really successfully tried, but regardless, these insects nowadays are coming up and they say they have it in it. When I tried to find this bush, cat bush, I'll make this quick, I bit it, and I like stimulants a lot sometimes, you know, or it was a raver or whatever, like MDMA or whatever. I bit this leaf. We're at this nature preserve, and I think, I'm like, this might be cat, it may not be, it's hard to judge these plants, and it tastes like Molly, and I'm like, and instantly it's like this like this, and this is why I think maybe those insects coming out of the ground is bad. You know, I don't want it to be like what is it called, the freaking people who ate the bats then they got COVID or whatever. But yeah, I was like, I thought I would love it, and I could be completely wrong. Could be biting some malaria tree or something like that. But it smelled a lot like Molly. It was exactly the same size. I bite it. It tastes like juicy fruit for a second, and then I'm like, it was like just pure fear, pure terror that I was gonna die for like 10 minutes. And I've seen this African guy do it before too, where it's like you don't like necessarily buy it. He's like peeling, like, you ever seen like the layers of cellular, like layers on plants? He would be like peeling the thinnest layer. But yeah, it was strong. You think it wouldn't be strong? It was way too strong and zero fun. I was like, ah! I hated it. Like, I thought I would love it. I fucking hated it. It was such a weird disappointment. I was like, damn. Let's see. It's so funny. Let's make sure we get to start jazzing. So, the best time was through the month of the excited insects. The best tea was picked at dawn before the dew had evaporated. Most of these pickers were girls and young women who had their fingernails cut a very peculiar length so that the fingers would not touch the leaves. They entered the fields before dawn, began picking, timing the movements to the music of drums and cymbals. Shaikos. This will quick be. Tea leaf picking. She tried on her bamboo hat. Glances in the mirror. Small bud or medium bud. A single leaf on each stalk were the top grades. These were sent to the emperor. Purple bud, which was 2 leaves on a stalk. 2 leaves with the bud, and stem tops were the 3 lesser grades. I don't know why they loved calling modern weed now, though. What do they call it? Runts? I stopped smoking weed so long ago, so whatever I have to go buy weed after makes me so mad. I sometimes eat it or like make it a solve and put it on me, but do not smoke things. It's bad for you. And some people are like, why? You just get to... The thing is, when things... you're burning it, it's making one chemical reaction. But as it oxidizes, it's making another. So it makes all these different things. I went about methamphetamine research is when Breaking Bad was happening, I'm like, I'm not going to watch Breaking Bad. I don't care about some fucking white trash people fucking fighting each other. I was so obsessed with, like, what happens when you burn something... What does it become? Is it still the same thing? Is there any different? How bad is it for you? Blah, 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 etc., etc. And they call it, it's called paralysis, or pyrolysis in chemistry is not your vaporizing something, but eventually when it begins to, what does that quality do? Because I was scared, you know, whatever. I never really found out what exactly it was because meth had only become like a real rage from like the 90s, 2000, and I'm like in the year 2011 reading all these old papers from like 10 years ago, and they're like, you know, you can figure it out, but it's not good for you, I think. Just because sometimes when you smell it, it's like, it's when you know, it's weird when you smoke it, you're like, there's no taste, or it's very weak, but as it dissipates, it gets stronger and stronger and stronger, and like it's more bitter and more bitter and more burnt tasting. It's weird. It has a very weird quality to it. But I'm sorry to derail the teaching. We'll go back and we'll probably, when we get to the meth chapter, I'll probably tell other stories too. So, sorry. Something familiar sounding. This is like why people like tea, I guess. The leaves were fired as soon as they were picked. As soon as they were rolled and dried, they were rushed to the palace by a relay of horses. So the sun was the golden age, the age of tea in China. They had recognized 36 different grades of tea. The Sung Chinese drank their tea powdered, whipping it up in a bowl with a bamboo whisk. Sung ceramics, the elegant tea bowls with the famous rabbit fur glaze. Ooh, that's got to be beautiful. That's like some weird like art piece by what's it called? I can't remember. Andy Warhol, where it's like the teacup with rabbit fur on it. I don't. They had that too. I don't know if it is. So with these famous bowls, rabbit fur glaze perhaps being never equaled in its beauty. Yeah, oh my god, that's crazy. I was gonna bring it up with TTF, the fighting game house. This is more, there's something like wabi sabi? I don't know how to explain it. This is not exactly, I guess it is. This quality where it's like the beautiful ugliness or something like that. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm sorry. This can go on forever. The art of science both flourished, and they had printed books with movable type. This is about like the history. Nothing yet. Oh, sorry. I guess they mean just like the printing press. Oh yeah, like I don't know. They used gunpowder for blasting and to fire rockets and projectiles. They invented the curved iron plow, discovered the magnetic compass, and constructed the largest, most accurate water clock that it had ever seen in the entire world. Their skill in medicines would not be equaled to the West for 8 centuries. Their extensive civil service was open to anyone who could pass a written examination covering the science, art, philosophy, and history, providing a merit-based system for entrance into government. And what does it say? An employment for a large number of poets. Oh my God, this does bring me back to what is up with modern China? Why they're commies, or communist party people? Well, why do they fucking love like the Western classics? They're college. They're like, oh, the entire class is full of like, let's read Plato, let's read all this, I don't even know what it's called. Dante's Inferno. All these. They're obsessed with it. Where in America, we're like, all the college kids are like, no, they just sign up for the class and never show up. Oh, funny. But yeah, no, that's weird though, because sometimes when you talk about the Red Revolution in China or whatever, is that there was still like currents of that same sort of deal, communalism or whatever, blah blah blah, in things before, obviously, and it's, but I think that was like a weird like postmodern like failure or something like that, I'd say, or attempt. I don't even know. I'm not gonna get into it too much. Anyways, the Golden Age was going to come to an abrupt end when the Mongolian Genghis Khan's mother encouraged her son to settle some scores and unite some tribes. Now look at that. That is so beautiful. Come on, get it. I don't know how to explain it, but if you've never done, what's it called? Ceramics. Oh, so beautiful. I guess you paint this while it's still wet. It's still a wet, mushy thing, and then you put that in the fire. You know what I'm saying? The teapot, China, the Qing dynasty. Based on the Ming dynasty motifs, the scene depicts a scholar settling out to visit friends in the company of a boy servant carrying his xian, a stringed musical instrument. Oh, Shin music is beautiful. I think we can review this because it's gold. Let's make sure we do this. And Creative Commons. Oh, come on, damn you. Yeah, Patrick was all saying there's no homosexuality in current China. You get thrown in jail. Blah, blah. I would say, oh, no. What it is? 2 hours.